Hello everyone and welcome to lesson 3.3. I've entitled this video, The Middle Colonies. This video is going to cover pages 69 to 72. New York and New Jersey. By 1660, England had two groups of colonies in North America. In the north were the New England colonies. In the south was Virginia and also the colony of Maryland, which was settled in 1634. Between these two groups of colonies were lands under Dutch control. This area was called New Netherland. The main settlement of New Netherland was New Amsterdam on Manhattan Island. This location combined a good seaport with access to the Hudson River. The river served as a major transportation link to a rich land of farms, forests, and furs. Nice alliteration there. As a result, New Amsterdam became a center of shipping to and from the Americas. The Dutch West India Company controlled New Netherland. It wanted to increase the colony's population. To do this, the company offered large grants of land to anyone who could bring at least 50 settlers to work the land. The landowners who received these grants were called patroons. The patroons ruled like kings. They had their own courts and laws. Settlers owed the patroons labor and a share of their crops. And now we can answer a couple of questions. Question number 1. Which European country had colonized the land between the New England colonies and Virginia? That was the Dutch people known as the Netherlands. Question 2. What was this area called, the area that we mentioned in question number 1? It was called New Netherland. Question 3. What was the most important settlement in New Netherland? That was New Amsterdam. Question 4. What are some reasons why New Amsterdam was such a growing and prosperous settlement? Well, number 1, it was a great seaport. Number 2, it had access to the Hudson River, and the Hudson River allowed people to transport goods and services like farms, forests, and furs. Those goods could be sent up and down the rivers. Remember, this was before modern transportation like railroads or cars or planes. Back then, the quickest way to ship things was by river, by water. Question number 5. How did the Dutch West India Company try to increase the population of New Netherland? Well, what they did is they said, listen, if you can bring 50 settlers to work the land, we will give you these huge grants of land, and we'll let you have that land, and that will help our area here grow. Question 6. What were the patroons? The patroons were kind of like kings. They were the landowners who received those grants, and they basically had these people come over, and they had their own courts and laws, and what they got from those from their labor is they were able to get from those people a share of their crops and their labor, and so it was a win-win in their minds, and they were very powerful. New Netherland becomes New York. New Netherland's success did not go unnoticed. The English wanted to gain control of the valuable Dutch colony. England insisted it had a right to the land based on John Cabot's explorations in the late 1400s. In 1664, the English sent a fleet to attack New Amsterdam. Peter Stuyvesant, governor of the colony, surrendered it to the English forces without a fight. England's King Charles gave the colony to his brother, the Duke of York, who renamed it New York. New York was a proprietary colony. This was a colony in which an owner, or proprietor, owned all the land and controlled the government. Not until 1691 did the English government allow citizens of New York to elect their legislature. New York continued to prosper under English control. It had a diverse population made up of Dutch, German, Swedish, and Native American people. Also among the population were people of the Jewish religion. They were the first Jews to settle in North America. In 1664, New York had about 8,000 residents, including at least 300 enslaved Africans. By 1683, the population had swelled to about 12,000 people. New Amsterdam, which had been renamed New York City, was one of the fastest growing places in the colonies. And now we can answer question number 7. How did the Dutch lose control of New Netherland? Well, one of the main forces at that time, England, basically was jealous, was selfish, and wanted the land for themselves. And so they're like, hey, that's supposed to be ours from way back when in the 1400s. And then they're like, you know what, we're just going to take it by force. So they sent in a fleet of ships, and basically New Netherland's like, okay, we're out of here. And that's how England took control of New Netherland. Question 8, what was the land of New Netherland renamed to? New York. Question 9. New York had a diverse population at that time. What does that mean? The word diverse means it had a wide range of peoples. If you notice, it said Dutch, German, Swedish, Native American, Jewish. There were all sorts of people in New York City, and of course that hasn't changed. New York City is one of the more diverse cities in the United States, a home of immigrants from a very long time. And if you notice here, by far, the city of New York City is the biggest city in the United States, more than double the size of the next biggest city, which is Los Angeles. So New York City has a long, rich history in this country of not only being the biggest city, but also a diverse city as well. And that is the answer to question 10. What was the settlement of New Amsterdam renamed to? It was called New York City. Founding New Jersey. The Duke of York decided to divide his colony. He gave the land between the Hudson and Delaware rivers to Lord John Berkeley and Sir George Carteret. The two proprietors named their colony New Jersey, after the English Channel island of Jersey, where Carteret was born. To attract settlers, the proprietors offered large tracts of land and also promised freedom of religion, trial by jury, and a representative assembly. Like New York, New Jersey had a diverse population. There were people of many different racial, religious, and national backgrounds, that is, many different ethnic groups. New Jersey had no natural harbors, so it did not develop a major port or city like New York. New Jersey's proprietors made few profits. Both eventually sold their shares in the colony. By 1702, New Jersey had become a royal colony. However, the colonists continued to make local laws. And now we can answer question number 11. What was the name of the colony started by Lord John Berkeley and Sir George Carteret? It was New Jersey. Question 12. What were the four things that they offered to settlers in order to encourage them to come to New Jersey? Number 1, they offered them large pieces of land. 2, they offered them freedom of religion. 3, they offered them trial by jury. And 4, they offered them a representative assembly. Question number 13. New Jersey had a lot of different ethnic groups at that time. What is an ethnic group? An ethnic group is or are people who share a common culture or heritage. And that's from the back of the book, that definition. Pennsylvania and Delaware. The Quakers, a Protestant group that had been persecuted in England, founded the colony of Pennsylvania. In 1680, William Penn, a wealthy English Quaker, received the land in payment for a debt King Charles owed Penn's father. Pennsylvania, or Penn's Woods, stretched inland from the Delaware River. The new colony was nearly as large as England. William Penn saw Pennsylvania as a, quote, holy experiment, a chance to put his Quaker ideals into practice. The Quakers, or Society of Friends, believed that everyone was equal. People could follow their own, quote, inner light, rather than the teachings of a religious leader. Quakers were also pacifist, or people who refused to use force or fight in wars. And now we can answer a couple questions. What religious group started the colony of Pennsylvania? That would be the Quakers. Question 15. What were 3 beliefs that Quakers had at that time that made them different from other groups? Well, number 1, they believed that everyone was equal. In fact, they're the first group that will later go on to argue against the practice of slavery, because they believed everyone was equal. 2, they believed that you didn't need to follow a religious leader, that you could follow your own inner light. And number 3, they were pacifist. And if you think about the word pacifist, think about you pass on the fist. In other words, you don't fight. Question number 16. We have that in the next slide. I got ahead of myself there. Penn was an active proprietor. In 1682, he sailed to America to supervise the building of Philadelphia, a name that means city of brotherly love. Penn designed the city himself. He also wrote Pennsylvania's first constitution. Penn believed that the land belonged to the Native Americans and that settlers should pay for it. He negotiated several treaties with local Native Americans. Penn advertised his colony throughout Europe. By 1683, more than 3,000 English, Welsh, Irish, Dutch, and German settlers had arrived. In 1701, in the Charter of Privileges, Penn granted colonists the right to elect representatives to the legislature. Philadelphia quickly became America's most prosperous city and its most popular port. People from Sweden had settled land in southern Pennsylvania before the Dutch, and then the English took over the area. Penn allowed these southern counties to form their own legislature. The counties then functioned or worked as a separate colony known as Delaware. However, Delaware remained under the authority of Pennsylvania's governor. And now we can answer a couple of questions on this one. Question 16. How did William Penn treat the Native Americans? Well, he treated them much better than the English had treated them. He believed they should be handled fairly in negotiated treaties, and that they should be paying for the land. If they were going to take it from Native Americans, it should be paid a fair price. Question number 17. What city of brotherly love quickly became the most prosperous city in the colonies? The city of Philadelphia. And question 18. What colony was eventually formed out of southern Pennsylvania by the people of Sweden? That would be the colony of Delaware. Well, thank you. That's all I have for you today for watching. Before we go, I do have a couple of memes for you. Here's one for my very own Pittsburgh Steelers team. The official breakfast of the Pittsburgh Steelers. 8 turnovers. If you get that, then you get football jokes. And here's one from the comedian Conan O'Brien. New Jersey is banning smiling in driver's license photos. So now instead of telling the driver to, quote, say cheese, the DMV photographer will just say, you live in New Jersey. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.